I'm going to give you a definition of food that may surprise you. A meat-eating animal? Is it a vegetable-eating animal? Or is it an omnivore eating both? Crickets and sheets of dried algae. There's a fine, a medium, and a coarse. And basically that's a feeding for 50 fish.
Well, hello. Jump right on in. You're at Father Fish.
In order to make the transition from a system based on industry standards for creating aquariums to natural standards for natural aquariums, we look at a variety of things: the substrate, the water, plants, fish, all of that. But most vitally, we need to look at food. And food becomes the one subject that tends to be dismissed as already resolved. We buy a can of food, and that's what it's for. It's fish food. It's made to feed fish. What could be simpler? But of course, it is never that simple. Let's take a look at the nature of food. What is food? What indeed is food? I'm going to give you a definition of food that may surprise you. Food is every single living animal and every single living plant, bar none. The biggest whale in the ocean, when it dies and falls deep to the bottom, feeds a vast city of life for upwards of a year before its body is completely consumed. The tiniest microfauna, the tiniest little insect, the paramecium, the amoeba, things too tiny to even see with the eye, are food for the tiniest fish. Every living thing is food. And how is this so? It is so because living creatures, plants and animals, feed on each other. It's the nature of the food web to eat the guy under you and to be eaten by the guy above you. And that's true in the entire food chain. The entire food chain is made up of things eating things. So, what is food? Food is everything that is alive and dead. Now, I don't mean inert, I don't mean like rocks and chemicals. I mean living things that have died. Very well. So how do we bring that into our aquarium? Well, there are a variety of ways. And it really depends on the nature of the little beastie that is being fed. So to do this properly, the first step in learning how to feed is to learn what to feed. That means studying. That means doing some research. It may mean doing some trial and error, laboratory kind of research. You try this, you try that. And it's not simply a matter of whether the fish will eat it. It's a matter of whether the food helps the fish to thrive. Because it may eat, but it may not really get much benefit from. It may eat simply because that's what's available to it and nothing else. So what food do we select? We need to know what the fish are, what they want, what their environment is. We need to learn as much as we can about the fish so that we can give it what it is created to be able to eat. That takes some research and it takes some time and effort. It's time well spent and it's effort well spent. The basic question is this a meat-eating animal? Is it a vegetable-eating animal? Or is it an omnivore eating both? The African cichlid, for example, is an omnivore. It feeds on two things. This is the Malawi cichlid I'm talking about. It feeds on the algae growing on the rocks, and it feeds on the vast clouds of insects that fly over the lake and fall in. So it's eating insects and it's eating algae, probably more or less in equal portions. So it is a true omnivore. Its teeth are even designed to scrape algae off of rocks. So it very much is a vegetarian, but it also gets protein from the countless insects that fall in. So what would two good foods be for African cichlids? Let me give you something to think about. Crickets and sheets of dried algae. If not crickets, then perhaps mealworms, earthworms. Bug bites are perfectly good food. I like to reconstitute them, and I would vastly prefer to feed live insects or even frozen, because freeze-dried foods do not contain the kinds of amino acids and other supplements in the food, in a live food. It's okay, it's acceptable, but it certainly is not optimal. Dried algae you can buy at any Oriental food store. Similarly, you can buy dried insects, but I recommend you set up a little worm farm. It's very simple to do. You get one little package of red wigglers and set them up in a little styrofoam box, and you will have worms that'll last forever. Okay, let's take the next step now. What happens when we put food in the aquarium? Well, it depends on whether the food is alive or dead. If it is alive, then it swims around or moves around, crawls around, runs around, tries to escape. It doesn't have much of an impact on the water column because it's small and it's relatively insignificant. Brine shrimp, for example, or scuds, or Daphnia, microworm, earthworms, red wigglers, crickets, all of those living foods, even little fish like guppies and goldfish. Anything living that's put in the tank has a relatively minimal impact on the water quality and the condition of the tank. Dead material, however, is another matter. Well, the very first thing that happens is it is attacked by bacteria. Doesn't take 5 minutes, doesn't take an hour, it takes 1 second. The instant dead material falls into the tank, bacteria attack it, and they begin to duplicate. And they duplicate, they multiply so rapidly, you can't count that fast. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256. It's faster than that. It is microscopic, extremely tiny microscopic. And so the doubling effect doesn't really become visible and apparent to us for really quite a while. If there is a very large amount of food, put in the tank, you will begin to see that the effects of bacteria exploding on it in about half an hour. There will start to be a little cloud around the food. That's bacteria. Now here's the problem when that happens. In order for bacteria to do its work, it takes a molecule of oxygen out of the water column in order to be able to create the chemical process or biological process that's going on. So the more dead material that's in there, the more bacteria is exploding and the more oxygen is being pulled out of the water. Generally, it's not a problem, but it certainly can become a problem, and a very serious one. With enough dead material in the tank, in a matter of an hour or two, there becomes an oxygen depletion that begins to stress the fish. In other words, more oxygen is being removed from the water than is being replaced at the surface by the exchange of oxygen and CO2. And we begin to see the fish gasping. And if we're not around and that happens and it persists, the fish begin to die. When they die, that adds to the dead biomass, which adds to the bacterial explosion. And in a matter of an hour or so, everything in that tank will be dead. So what does all this mean? It means you absolutely cannot overfeed. Overfeeding literally kills fish. And it can do it quickly or it can do it slowly. I believe that 99% of the fish that die in an aquarium die from overfeeding. It is that substantial, that predominant, that major an issue. So it is absolutely vital to never overfeed. So what do we do about that? How do we feed properly? There are a lot of different ways to feed fish. This is simply a technique that we've developed here for convenience. It's an easy one to teach new staff and one that we can duplicate simply. But you develop your own. Develop your own approach to how you want to feed your fish. We have right here 3 different grades of food. There's a fine, a medium, and a coarse. These are foods made by the Prime Food Company. It's a fish food company located in Israel. They make food for the food fish and tropical fish industry throughout Europe. It's a food that is not available here in the United States. We buy it from a farmer's co-op that gets it in by the ton. We're able to get smaller amounts than that and make it available through our shop. It is absolutely the best quality food on the market, I believe. I'm very committed to it and very excited to be able to offer it. I have more than 50 fish in that 10-gallon tank. And they're living in there healthfully and happily. There's a betta, there are neons, there are loaches. Quite a tank full of fish, isn't it? Let's start with the powder. And what I want to do, I'm going to feed these neons. They're a tiny fish with a tiny mouth, and they can feed on the tiniest of food. Now, keep in mind, before the fish can eat the food, it has to reconstitute itself. So you might consider, if it's a slightly larger pellet, putting it in water before you feed it. We don't do that. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to wet my finger touch my finger to the food, and then I'm going to put that right on the, you can see what it's doing. It's feeding into the tank. Let's watch for a second. You see them coming around it? They're all in for it. Pretty soon every one of them will be there as they find it. Now, I will not put more food in until they stop looking for it because they will have eaten it all. So I want to control this. I control it by letting them eat what I put in. And then once they finish, have eaten everything that's in there. Look at the loach up there. Let's give him some slightly, actually he can take the course. Let's do a bit of course with the loach. Now you see the big one's hitting it, but it's going all the way to the bottom. The loaches are going to find it down there. Maybe while we're at it, we'll do a little of the mid-grade. I've got mid-grade fish in here. I see a couple of sparkling ceramics in here. There's a betta. So there we are. Now I'm going to do a little more of this fine powder for the meat. And basically that's a feeding for 50 fish. I've just fed a minuscule amount of food. It is enough for them to have actually, see the loaches catching the food. They're finding it here where the big pellets dropped. And the mid-sized fish and the neons are feeding in the middle column. We'll do some of the mid-grade for the blood fins and the blowfish. I think the blood fins are going to want the finer. It gives you a chance to be able to watch what's happening. And it's so important to be able to see how the fish are eating. To make sure they're getting it, they're able to eat it, that they're not simply spitting it out because they can't handle it. So there we are. That's a simple way to be able to feed. Do keep in mind the importance of providing live food. I'm not demonstrating that today, but live food is always superior. It is always the very best food you can give your fish. It contains all of the living material, the amino acids and the fatty acids, all the lipids, all of the things that make it possible to really thrive on that food. So do try to feed live food. There are lots of videos about how to raise live food cultures, how to buy it, and so forth. Well, I hope this has been a bit helpful to you, to give you maybe a new take on feeding and a way of thinking about it a little differently. Thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you all. We've got some exciting new videos coming out. I know it's been a little while, but we've been perambulating and considering what we want to do and how we want to move forward. I think you're going to be excited about where we're going. Bless you all. Bye for now.